Good evening and welcome to First Issues. It has been a little over a month since the Minister of Finance and Development Planning, Mr. Kenneth Matambo, delivered the 2014-2015 budget speech to Parliament on the 3rd of February. And it appears that all the analysis, commentary and speculation that ensued has finally settled down. Hopefully, cooler heads can now prevail. Different sectors of the economy have weighed in on what the budget has prioritized, its degree of openness, and its transformative power. We therefore felt it pertinent to deliver to the viewer at home expert analysis given on the 2014 budget, to provide a more informed perspective with which to interpret all the talk that has ensued from the presentation. We begin tonight's program with a currency strategist at Rand Merchant Bank, John Cairns, on the global economic context in which the budget was drawn up.
Just to go back a step, the chart you see up there is the world we knew it up until the middle of last year. Okay, so we had the boom years, everything was good. We had the great financial crisis where we worried about a depression, another 1930s repeat. As it was, good policy making brought us back, and then we went into this period of very anemic economic growth. And during this period, we were always worried that even though growth was weak, it could be weaker still. The risks to that already very poor outlook were always to the downside. The good news in the past year is that we can finally now look to a proper economic recovery, a self-sustaining economic recovery that hopefully will not need anymore the stimulus from global central banks, from finance ministries. The issues there you see on the right-hand side, it is the US once again that is leading the global economy out of this very poor patch that we've been in. US growth is looking very strong, 3.2% in the last quarter, possibly 3% growth going into next year. The other developed countries are doing relatively well, at least they're not doing as badly as they were. After 6 consecutive quarters, the Eurozone has pulled out of recession in the middle of last year, possibly growing at 0.5%, 1% this year. In Japan, we have huge economic stimulus, monetary and fiscal, that is generating very decent rates of growth. So finally, after all these years of extremely slow, patchy growth rates, it finally looks like the developed world is picking up some steam. EM, emerging markets, the developing world, by contrast, is facing some headwinds. So China, of course, structural changes, and then very importantly, from your perspective, what is happening south of the border, certain emerging markets are coming under quite significant pressure, currency weakness, as I'm sure you all know, with consequences for interest rates and for the economy. So developed world suddenly starting to do better, emerging markets continuing to struggle. Better global growth environment is ultimately good for Botswana. Okay, your key sector, your diamond industry. The minister noted the growth in diamond sales in 2013, up almost 10%. With global growth picking up, the US is still the main market for diamonds. Ultimately, that bodes very well for Botswana. And in the past few years, where your economy has been driven by domestic consumption, domestic expenditure, investment, construction, it looks like your mining sector will eventually start to take up some of the slack as a result of the very strong growth in the developed world.
Although John has just delivered good news with regards to Botswana's diamond export market, there are some notable areas of concern expected to affect government revenue.
The 2 sources of government revenue, 2 of the 3 sources of government revenue. Okay, diamonds, the mineral taxes, which essentially comes from the diamond sales, so that's looking positive. By contrast, SACU receipts will look worse. Think about it, okay? SACU receipts is essentially calculated from all the imports that come into Southern Africa, okay? It's the taxes, the import taxes that Southern Africa gains from importing. As the rand weakens, what is the consequence of that? The consequence is less import duties, less SARCU revenues coming across to Botswana. So, ladies and gentlemen, simply to conclude, okay, from my side, the global environment, the global economy is doing better, very good for Botswana. It will really help your export sector, particularly the diamond sector. Negative consequence, changing in central bank policy, particularly in the Federal Reserve, has put the currency under pressure, may reduce your SARCU receipts that you're getting here, but also very importantly, probably implies that the Bank of Botswana has reduced scope for further interest rate cuts.
Welcome back to the show, as in this segment, we continue a conversation began last week with the CEO at the Botswana Meat Commission about the goings-on at the institution. He had informed us in the previous program how a situation in which the Commission was buying cattle at a higher price than they were selling it, taking on all the financial risk when financing feedlots, and not marketing their product to the relevant markets, had put the institution in the terrible state that was heavily reported on and speculated about over the past few years. This evening, Dr. Tombale addresses highly debated issues such as the liberalization of the beef industry. There has been a growing call for the liberalization of the beef industry, with some farmers feeling that the BMC should take all the cattle that producers are willing to sell, and if not, the farmers should be allowed to export them as they see fit. The more noteworthy advocates of this measure, including Agriculture Minister Christian de Graaf and the Botswana National Beef Producers Union. On the topic of liberalization, Dr. Tombale says he thinks that people were disgruntled, not necessarily with what he considers to be the better model, but with the failure to effectively implement it.
It's a difficult one. I said before that my overall role really is BMC. I need to, where I was put here to put BMC in order. So my focus is that BMC should stand on its own feet. But as I said, BMC is a cooperative for farmers. Ironically, my view is that people who are calling for liberalization were really protesting against the problems at BMC, not necessarily about the model. Because if you go to where we are selling, the same processes apply. For example, one of our biggest markets is Norway. Not biggest, but I think the most lucrative one is Norway. We get there through a farm cooperative called Natura. The reason for that is that they don't want any imports to come into the country at lower cost than what they are selling their own cattle. So we need to organize ourselves as well, rather than fragment and sell. If you fragment, you are going to sell to at lower cost. But if we were to consolidate ourselves in the country, we should be able to get to markets as a consolidated force. What I'm saying is that although people are calling about liberalization, I'm not against liberalization, but I think the better model that we have, if we put it in order, it will serve us better than the liberalization that people are calling about for. People are saying that if there were more facilities that export meat products, then the prices of cattle would be higher. And I'm saying that's not proven. My understanding of monopoly is the other way around. It is the consumer that if you liberalize will get cheaper products. In other words, we are saying we're going to produce the meat product cheaper to be able to, for the consumer to get it cheaper. Whereas we want the higher price for the entry points. And I keep saying to people, look at the monopoly that we have been running with for more than 40 years, which is De Beers. In the past, De Beers, which we ran with for a long time, if the market goes down, rather than buying to the consumer at low prices, they used to hold back the product so that the prices stay the same, and it benefited the producer. The same should apply here, but people seem to be taking that upside down, where the producer will get more prices if you liberalize. I'm saying it's not proven. The consumer is the one who's going to get a better price, and then the producer will get very low prices. So I think we need to be careful. We need to really understand what is it that we are going to come up with. To me, is that the lesson that we have as a country, we were very good when others were nationalizing. We decided to go with De Beers, to become a joint venture with De Beers, and it worked for us. And the same process here can, in order for the producer to get better results, is to consolidate rather than to break.
The Ngamiland district has one of the biggest cattle populations in the country. Yet because of the foot and mouth disease outbreak, the area has not fully benefited from this resource. Next, we learn the strategies in place to remedy this non-fortuitous situation.
In Ngamiland, it's a very difficult area. The problem with Ngamiland is that it's a big area, but we have classified it as one. We have been encouraging government that they need to look at subdividing it, because there are areas that for a long time, even though there's foot and mouth in Ngamiland, I've never had foot and mouth. So if we had to pass those areas out, they would become EU compliant. But even now, when it like it is, we are looking at opportunities. We had gone to Angola to try to find markets for that meat products. Currently, we still have difficulties in the route for transporting that meat product to Angola, but the market is there. We hope, we have been talking to people here to take the meat products to DRC. I think again it's an issue of the transit routes, but I think we will get there. So if we were to hopefully get that aspect going, I think in Ngamiland we will reach at least to what we call other market supply, because currently the meat products that we are producing in the abattoir there in Maung is being sold around Botswana. So my hope is that not too long, which is one of the biggest sore points, is that their prices have been lower than the rest of the country. We should be able at least to bring them at par with what we call other markets. But there are a few things to tweak, like I said, the issue of transit routes for the meat products to where we want to send them.
It seems like EU compliance is a very, very big issue with regards to the operations of BMC. Could you unpack that relationship for us so that we may understand the specifics surrounding EU compliance?
I know should start by saying that a lot of Botswana are saying that the problems of the industry here is because of the demands of the EU. Yes, there are a lot of demands. My view is that if you look at most of the demands of the EU, basically is hygiene. It's the things that you would want to see for the meat products in any food establishment. So basically, I think we need to look at the EU from that perspective. And technically speaking, EU market is the biggest market in terms of realization, compared to the other markets that we have. Even with all of the problems that we say we have, I think the realization is still higher. So my encouragement to my fellow country people is that I think we need to do all we can to be able to comply with the EU. It's not very difficult. As I said, it's basically hygiene, half of it. They don't want hormones in the meat products. I agree with them. So we basically, and it gives us an edge. For example, when we sell our meat products, currently there were too many newspapers saying that people want to buy BMC. The South Africans, because their feedlot have been dependent on hormones in order to produce the meat products they can sell to Europe, we can. And they are trying to come this side to utilize the same facility. So you could see that we have an advantage there, even though you need to work for it in order to be able to get that condition. So as BMC, as Botswana, despite all of the critical issues, the problems that we have a first-rate facility. We comply, if you comply with the EU market, you comply with the world market, you can get anywhere. That's the pathway to get you to anywhere you want to go.
We continue our exploration of BMC operations next week as we appreciate that it is a story with personal implications for most Botswana. We conclude tonight's program with some wise words from our resident leadership guru, Rene Carriol, as he imparts what he has learned from working with various organizations across the globe with regards to building trust within a team, a major characteristic of all winning organizations in this new age.
Trust occurs when you know me and I know you. I know as much about you as possible, you know as much about me as possible. And the more I know you, the more we know each other, the more we build trust over time. Okay, so if we think about your best friends, you've got trust with them. How did that trust occur? You probably grew up together, you know each other's families, you've shared a lot together, you've had tough times together and hung together, you've had good times and enjoyed them together. But really, trust is born out of, I have an intimate knowledge of who you are. And you have an intimate knowledge of who I am. And we like those two things, so we trust them. And if you think about the best leaders in our societies are our mothers at home. They build instant trust, unconditional love every minute of every day with that family. They're making big decisions every single day about that family. And all of it is nurtured on trust. The challenge we have is when we come to a place of work is we don't know our work colleagues the way we know our loved ones. We don't share as much with them as we do with our loved ones. Let's change the game. Let's change the game. The more I give of you and tell me about me, the more you get to know whether, is this someone I can trust or is it someone I can't? And the more open I am, the more likely you are to trust me. If I tell you about warts and everything about me, you're more likely to trust me. What has changed in the new paradigm is in the world I grew up in, trust was earned. So it took a long time. In the new world of leadership, trust is given. I'm going to give you my trust. So the management style, it tends to be delegation, because I don't yet know you or trust you. Here are 3 or 4 things I want you to go and do. When you finish them, come back to me so I can check that they've been done okay. Then I'll give you some more. Right, that's delegation. 10 years ago, we thought delegation was cool. I'm telling you it's not cool. It means I don't trust you. The new style is empowerment. Go and make and take some big decisions. I trust you. Within this framework, I'm going to give you freedom within a framework. Go and make some decisions. I don't even know you, but I'm going to trust you. And if I trust you, the likelihood is you can say, why does he trust me with these big decisions? I'm not going to let him down because he's trusted me. That's how we start to build trust. So the role of the leader is give trust. Don't wait for it to be earned. Just give it. Be brave enough to give it. Sometimes you've got to hold your breath. Oh my God, I've never met them, but I'm going to give them trust. I won't delegate to you. You go and run this division. Make these big decisions around this division. I'll provide you air cover. I'll support you. If it goes wrong, I'm not going to sit in the seat and try and fly the plane. I'll coach you so you can fly it. And as long as I stick to that, you go wrong, it doesn't work, and I don't try and fly the plane, I say, look, let's have another go. Go and have another go. The only mistake I'm worried about is the one you don't learn from. But it shouldn't lead to a blame culture. It should, as long as you are trying to move in the right direction, you have my 1000% support. When it goes wrong and I support you, you'll be even more loyal to me. You know, if there's a chance for someone to be shot and I say, hang on, I'm going to take the bullet. No, it wasn't his fault. I made the decision. Then you're going to trust me something incredible. And in private, I say to you, look, I took the bullet. Let's learn from it. Go and try again. The worst thing I can do is say, it was nothing to do with me. It was these three people that worked. I've killed trust.
It is now time for the stock market review, courtesy of the Botswana Stock Exchange.
We are looking at the performance of the BSE in the past week. In the past week, our DCI lost a margin of 0.15% and our FCI went up by 0.14%. On a year-to-date basis, the DCI is up by 1.13% and the FCI is up by 0.12%. If you compare this performance with performance at the same time in 2013, you'd find that our DCI was up by 6.68%, whereas our FCI was down by 0.15%. Activity was quite robust in the past week. We saw our turnover amounting to 76.6 million pula, or 15.3 million pula every day. And this was accumulated from a total of 12.8 million shares traded on the BSE. Performance so far in 2014 has been quite good compared to the same period in 2013. We have traded shares amounting to 343 million pula, or 7.4 million pula every day, from a total volume of 76 million shares. This compares quite favorably with the same time in 2013, where we had only traded 171 pula worth of shares, or 3.7 million pula worth of shares every day, from a total of 69 million shares. If you look at the performance of the ETFs, our Beta gained 30 thebe over the past week to close the week trading at 38.95 thebe, and the New Gold ETF gathered 1 pula to close the week trading at 114 pula per unit.
We trust that your time with us this evening has been time well spent. From me, Nameto Sibina, the team behind First Issues, and our sponsors First National Bank, we wish you a good night and pleasant viewing.